we're going to take a look at the newest Genesys blog post real quick before we hop into some Radiant Typhoon. But they dropped an update, what to expect in the March points update. And I've seen some people talk about this online already. Some people have been complaining. Some people have been pointing out some of the things in this are quite cool. So I want to take a look at it myself. Shouldn't be too long of a look since this is not a points update. This is more of a talking about the philosophy of the format and upcoming changes and some announcements. So not many points changes to discuss yet, but just a quick overview of what is to come for Genesys format. What to expect in the March points update. The Proto YCS tournament at the 300th YCS events have concluded and the numbers are in. Again, a huge thank you to everyone who chose to play in the Proto YCSs in Richmond and Dortmund. Coming up next is the Genesys celebration at OTSs over the entire month of March, and we've also had the official, the release of Maze of Muertos. That means it's time to update the points once again. The last major points update based on tournament data was back in December, but between the Proto YCS events and the uptick on players posting their decks online using the hashtag Yugioh Genesys, we have a nice chunk of data to work with to update the points. You should see that update on Thursday or Friday, but we can tell you what to expect now while we iron out the final numbers. Okay, I did not think we were going to get the update so soon. This is today or tomorrow as of recording. New cards from Maze of Muertos. There aren't many of these cards that will be getting points. The most important is the Gaze of Timaeus, since it makes Red Eyes Dark Dragoon's 100 point cost almost irrelevant. Okay, good. This is important. One other thing that I feel like is kind of crazy is Illusion Gate is 0 points in Genesys format. I cannot imagine a world in which that card is not an immediate side deck staple at the very minimum if it stays at 0 points. Illusion Gate is crazy for Genesys. Yeah. It's interesting they're not even mentioning it here. Side note, we discussed Maze of Muertos with Duelist at the events and whether or not the pumpkin cards really need a huge number of points tossed on them preemptively. We were able to suss out that players don't actually believe every new theme that releases is so powerful it needs to immediately have 60 or so points slapped on its engine. In this particular case, I am inclined to agree. I think the new Call of the Haunted archetype is not very well suited for advanced constructed as of now. I don't think anyone is really going to have success with it, at least not much. So Genesys is basically your only chance to play those cards. So I think it's fine that they're not pointing them too high or at all in the beginning. I think if the deck ends up being good there, then they can still slap on points afterwards. I'm not mad that there is a place to play that deck at full power, because in advanced constructed it cannot keep up. Maybe it can in Genesys, because I would imagine in Genesys it's not so bad if you have like 1 or 2 dead Call of the Haunted in your hand when you're going second. It's still going to be tough, but I would assume the deck is probably playable there. Well, I don't know if it's top meta even for Genesys standards, but okay. Yeah, outside of Illusion Gate missing, I think there's nothing here that's shocking or surprising or anything like that. The Gaze of Timaeus should have points because Red Eyes Dark Dragoon is a card that is toxic and shouldn't really be summoned, and especially in Genesys format. All right. Usage rate outliers. This category covers cards used in decks that were significant performance outliers. As a reminder of a few basic facts, every tournament will have exactly one winner. Every tournament has a most popular deck. Just being the most popular deck doesn't mean the points are going to go sky high, but if the margin between the most popular deck and the rest of the pack is massive, the point increase will be larger. Okay, good. Across the Proto YCS events, Cool Tune was by far the most played deck, with 53 duelists, not counting the White Forest deck that used some Cool Tune cards as an additional engine. That is twice as many as Exosister, 27, which was the second most played. Following Exosisters were Monarchs, White Forest, Draco Tail, Vanquish Soul, Radiant Typhoon, and Art. Despite winning the Dortmund event, Cool Tune's overall win rate hovered around 50% for the weekend. Many players commented that once they sat down for real YCS level competition, they found that some of their card choices built up around casual decks weren't correct for a 7+ round Swiss tournament against exclusively strong decks. Okay. Many players regretted choosing Exosister, and the data bears that out. No top 8 finishes, 2 total top 32 finishes between both events, and an overall win rate closer to 40% than 50%. Due to the play rate, they've earned some more points, but due to the lack of success, the increases will be far smaller than they would be even for a 50% win rate deck. There's a lot in here in this paragraph. There's a lot of things to talk about, or rather, you could have a very in-depth conversation about, I guess, the philosophy behind all of this. Because I guess the question is, the question is like, how much does play rate matter versus how much does win rate matter, right? Because I do agree that if a deck is being played a lot, then it should probably get some points as a baseline. And I will say one thing, in these kind of games where you just have a huge amount of games being played in general, like very often even the best decks in the format will more so gravitate towards a win rate that is around 50%. I think it's very rare you'll find a deck that has a win rate of like, I don't know, 70% or whatever. That is obscene. Usually it'll even out because these decks play mirror matches. They play against other capable decks. They play against other capable duelists. They have to go second as well, and like people get unlucky and stuff like that. So like the win rate is usually going to be like, for the better decks, I would assume the win rate hovers around like maybe 55%, and for the worst decks it hovers around like 45, like all the meta stuff. So a deck having like just slightly over 50% win rate is still pretty good in the grand scheme of things. So I think Cool Tune winning one of the events and being by far the most played deck definitely deserves some points. I guess the Exo Sister portion is where it's a little controversial. If a deck that has basically not a single top 8 across 2 YCSs, 2 top 32s in total between both events, and a win rate closer to 40 than to 50, I guess the question is, does this deck even deserve to be hit at all, right? The answer is probably not, or if they do, then very, very, very small changes. I'm gonna be honest with you, the solution to this problem, if it even is a problem to begin with, is probably to just hit Dimension Shifter. This is probably the thing to do, because I'm pretty sure Exo Sister is like fine, but it does get to play Dimension Shifter if it wants to, so I would love if they got rid of that possibility. I don't really have a problem with Exo Sister in Genesis format. I think it's a little weird that if it's putting up this performance, they are feeling like putting points on it. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, if the format would have self-regulated for this, like if people think Exo Sister is good, they bring it to tournaments, they don't perform well, yes, the play rate for Exo Sister is high for these tournaments, but it would have gone down. That's just how it works, you know? If people realize, hey, we thought this deck was good, but then we brought it and it didn't work, they're gonna play other decks often, unless they really like the deck, but it's fine because obviously the power level isn't too high, which is mainly what this should aim at, is like they should put points on decks that are too strong, which if you look at the numbers, Exo Sister is not too strong, right? So I think I think this is a little bit weird to put points on Exo Sister. It kind of goes against the philosophy of Genesis, I think, where you want to put points on the more powerful decks. But I guess popularity is a factor, and it was the second most popular deck across those tournaments. So I see why they're doing it. I don't necessarily agree with it. But if the points increase is small, then I think it's okay. Because the other thing you have to consider is like they are, if Exo Sister is the second most played deck right now, and you're putting points on the most represented deck, then by that logic, of course, the second most popular deck is going to gain a boost because it's no longer as hard to beat Cool Tune, for example, right? So this could also be somewhat of a preemptive hit to make sure that Exo Sister doesn't just replace Cool Tune as the by far most played deck. So I think it's okay. I think it's kind of whatever if the changes are not too large. They shouldn't give Exo Sister huge point increases for sure. That'd be weird. Okay, usage rate outliers engines. The prophecy has finally come true. Radiant Typhoon Vision finally showed up as a popular draw engine in non-Radiant Typhoon. What do you mean finally come true? People have been doing this since the day that Radiant Typhoon Vision was printed. I remember I vividly remember Pack, like the very first NAYCS, I think Pack qualified for the thing with Radiant Typhoon Vision in Memento. Like, well, everyone has been doing this. But okay, sure. How popular was it? More than 3 times as popular as the Radiant Typhoon deck itself. This is a big change from the invitational stage of the rollout where it was almost exclusively in Radiant. I don't know if I don't know. I guess they do have the data, but this is the kind of the cue the Dexter meme where it's like I think this is wrong, but I can't prove it. I don't know. This card always felt popular. I played against this card at my very first locals for Genesis format. People activated it in Pearly. I've seen people do it in Memento and everything, dude. I don't know. I feel like this is not new, but I can't prove it. The Regenesis cards have spread outside of just Regenesis and Vanquish Soul, and at the same time, the actual Regenesis deck players have also been asking for a rebalance of their points, like we did for Adventure and Branded. Yes, Regenesis is also something that, like, the Regenesis archetype is really cool, but it does have a problem, which is that you have a very accessible Omni Negate that you can splash in technically any deck, and that is going to be very cheap. I think they should try to find a way to make it so that the pure Regenesis deck is playable, but not every deck can play Regenesis just to slap an Omni Negate onto the board. That is something I would like to see. I think the Regenesis engine is a little bit overused in other decks and not really in Regenesis itself. How many points is the Regenesis engine? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just the spell that has like an outrageous amount of points. Like the Regenesis Searcher spell is like 33 or something. So, and as a result of that, it basically makes it so pure Regenesis is completely unplayable because you need the consistency spell. And what the other decks are doing is just they just don't play the spell. They simply just play the monsters and call it a day. And then they go like, oh, activate Regenesis Archfiend by having Heavy Borger in hand and then search an Omni Negate, right? So it is just like it's just the thing where like we've talked about this even when Genesis came out, right? When they announced it with the whole searcher thematic, I think is not super well handled in Genesis right now. I think the Rhoda spells, like the searching, the consistency should not be that limited in Genesis format. I think consistency is fine because the goal of Genesis is to provide more balanced gameplay. So if the things that you can search, if the things that you can do are balanced, it's no problem if they're consistent, okay? So Regenesis as a deck in terms of its power level is completely fine. There's no reason for Regenesis itself to be inconsistent, right? You should handle the negation, right? Like they could make Sage incredibly expensive and all the other Regenesis stuff free, and then maybe you can play Regenesis, but you can choose, do I play Sage or do I play non-engine, right? But like the searching power isn't really the problem here. I agree. This needs rebalancing. I think they can put Regenesis Archfiend and the Regenesis spell at very low points, maybe like 5 or 10. But then they should put the Omni Negate at like 50 or something, and then it's fine, right? Let's say Sage is 50, Archfiend is 5, and the spell is 5. You can still play pure Regenesis with 1 Sage if you want to. That would be 80 points total. That would be very low on non-engine, or you could play Regenesis without the Omni Negate for 30 points for the entire engine. And this gives you a real deck building decision, all right? This is something you can decide between. You can be like, okay, do I spend 50 points on Sage or do I spend 50 points on non-engine? This, in my opinion, would encapsulate the spirit of Genesis format if you have a true choice on what to do. It's kind of like how it works with Vanquish Soul right now, right? Like with Vanquish Soul, you can technically play the engine in a bunch of different combinations, right? Like you can play 2 Holly Sue if you want to, but it'll cost you 66 points. If you want to play 2 Holly Sue and 3 Raisin, that's 99 points. You can't even play Jiao Long at all. But a lot of people have been doing 1 Holly Sue so they can play some non-engine, right? And this is a good example of the Genesis point system working. And I think they should apply it to more archetypes. And Regenesis they just slapped for Regenesis itself, they just slapped a huge amount of points on the most important card in the archetype, making the archetype in its pure form basically unplayable. And so everyone is just splashing it for the Omni Negate, which is not a very good execution. So yeah, this is good. In this category will be some changes to Punk, as well as Medeus the Pure and Theorealize, which now appear as engines across 3 different decks. Okay, we'll have to wait and see what that exactly looks like. Usage rate outliers non-engine. This is where Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit and friends will appear. Cool Tune is really messing with the numbers in this category, since as a synchro deck it's very tuner heavy, and the Ghost Girls are all tuners, so this gets tricky. But a card like Ash Blossom is definitely creeping up in usage, so it's going to be up in cost. It's still showing up in less than a quarter of North American decks, by the way, and even fewer in Europe. At the same time, Droll has dropped in use, no surprise, so will decrease a little bit, but not down to where it was before. Okay, this is awful news. This is terrible. This is a terrible decision. No one, literally no one, okay? No one who has played Genesis format since they reduced Droll and Blockbird has said, oh, damn, I wish Droll and Lockbird was less, all right? Everyone was happy about this. You increased Droll and Lockbird so people would stop playing it. That was the goal of this. This is what everyone was screaming out of their lungs, that they wanted this. No one wanted to play against Droll and Lockbird. Why are you incentivizing people to put Droll and Lockbird back into their decks? This is crazy. This is literally crazy. There is no deck in the format right now that needs to be kept in check by Droll and Lockbird or something, right? This is something I would understand this, okay, if like Dark World FTK was popping up or whatever. I know there's people playing Exodia right now, but this is something you should handle. The solution to Exodia is not that people spend their valuable Genesis points on Droll and Lockbird, okay? The solution is not Droll. The solution is just put damn points on the FTKs, okay? But sure, I look, this sounds really bad and they should not do this, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how exactly they're gonna point it. But I don't know, man. This is weird. The whole Ghost Sister category is also weird. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit does not strike me as a problematic card in Genesis format. I think putting some more points on Ash Blossom is okay, I think. But the other ones have all felt incredibly fair and balanced and even mediocre. The only deck that really feels like it wants to use them is Cool Tune. So if you wanna hit, here's the thing, right? They're saying like Cool Tune is messing with the numbers in this category since it's a synchro deck and it's very tuner heavy and the Ghost Girls are tuners, so this gets tricky. It doesn't get tricky, all right? If the cards are only popular because of Cool Tune, then put points on Cool Tune. It's the most played deck already, and you acknowledge that like, oh well, Ghost Ogre's numbers are up because Cool Tune has synergy with it, so Cool Tune is playing it. No, just hit Cool Tune. It's not that hard. It's not that tricky. There's no reason to punish everyone else for Cool Tune being the most popular deck, because Ghost Ogre in general was a really fair pointed non-engine. Like almost no other deck is playing Ghost Ogre for good reason. Like, just put points on Cool Tune. It's not that hard. Really not that hard. So this paragraph is weird to me. I'm not a fan of this philosophy that's applied here. The standard side deck. Over 60% of all competitors' side decks started with 3 DD Crow, Cosmic, and Ultimate. You're not putting points on those. There's no way. Most extra decks began with Garua, Malong, Meteorologic Aggregator. More than half of duelists played Dark Ruler. These and similar cards will no longer be free and will cost points simply because of the basic Genesis rule. Heavily played cards go up, less played cards go down. Okay, this is crazy. The thing here is that this is not a problem with those cards. This is not a problem with DD Crow, Cosmic Cyclone, Ultimate Slayer, or Dark Ruler no more. All of those cards are completely fine in Genesis format. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is quite frankly just a natural phenomenon of this format and the side deck in general. All right. So how this is going to work, and this is very basic deck building logic for Genesis format. You only have 100 points at your disposal. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to spend those points as efficiently as possible. And this means you want to put cards that have points on them into your main deck, so you have a chance to see them in all 3 games. Most of the time this is true. Maybe 99% of the time, all of the cards that have points should be in your main or extra deck, so you have access to them in all 3 games. Because the cards that have points to them are the cards that are more powerful, so you want to put the cards in your deck in all 3 games, right? Maybe there's a few very small exceptions, like maybe in a certain format, a card like Nibiru or Molcharmi Fualos is really good against one specific deck, but you don't want to main deck it because it's not good against some others, but you really need an answer to those decks, and then you decide to spend like a couple of points in your side deck on a Nibiru or something. That's fine, but 99% of the time, it's better to put the cards that have points into your main deck. As a result of this, there will always be a list of cards that are the best cards for 0 points. There will always be like your top 5 cards for 0 points that you can side deck, right? If it's not DD Crow, it's maybe Skullmeister. If it's not Cosmic Cyclone, maybe it's Mystical Space Typhoon. If it's not Ultimate Slayer, it's maybe Illusion Gate, now with Maze of Muertos. There's always going to be like your top 5, top 10 free cards to put in the side deck that everyone is going to put in their side deck. This will not change anything. This is just going to make going second after siding even harder, because you're making the few tools that they have expensive now, right? These cards, even if they cost, literally, even if they cost 3 points, they will probably vanish from the format, because people are not going to main deck Cosmic Cyclone, and people are not willing to spend points on their side deck. So Cosmic Cyclone, honestly, might as well, if you put it at 3 points, you might as well put it at 100, because people are not going to play 9 points Cosmic in their side deck. It's not going to happen. So you're gonna kill these cards basically completely. The only card, I mean, I guess if DD Crow is really cheap, maybe people are going to start main decking DD Crow. If Ultimate Slayer is really cheap, maybe some board breaker decks are going to main deck Ultimate Slayer, but you basically just kill these from the side deck completely. And this just like, to me, this paragraph is like just a fundamental misunderstanding of deck building in Genesis format. Like, this is just something that I don't know. This one is just like, what do you think is going to happen if you put points on Crow, Cosmic, and Ultimate Slayer? People are just going to stop playing them completely, which is not good. That is not the goal here. That should be your goal with cards like Droll and Lockbird that are not fun. Your goal with Droll and Lockbird should be people should stop playing this card completely. That's your goal with Droll. Okay, that's gonna make people happy. With DD Crow, Cosmic, and Ultimate Slayer, your goal should be for people to play these cards. These cards are fun. These cards are interactive. These cards are completely fair in Genesis format. No one's ever complained about Cosmic Cyclone. All right, there's no need to eliminate Cosmic Cyclone from your format. This confuses me, but I guess. And this is the thing, right? It doesn't really bother me that much because I'm not really attached to these cards. But the thing is, it's not going to do what they're hoping for it to do. It's not going to diversify the side deck. It's just going to find, there's going to be replacements. There's going to be the next couple of free side deck staples, and people are going to play those. This is the thing. Staples inherently are not a bad thing. There needs to be cheap, accessible, free side deck staples for Genesis, because that's how the format works. Low usage decks players like. We'll be taking another pass over the points list, looking for decks players seem to like but feel the points are a bit too heavy on. The poster deck here is shockingly Dragon Rulers. Okay, never mind. This update is based. This is the best update ever. We've imagined what it would be like to travel back in time a decade and tell our younger selves how much player want fewer restrictions on the Dragon Rulers, would have laughed ourselves out of the room, and yet here we are. Hell yeah! Reduce those Dragon Rulers. They can be free. Make them free. Make them 0 points. All of them. I can be trusted. Low usage engine, non-engine. There are several cards undergoing point decay right now due to rarely or never appearing in decks. Okay, FTKs and pseudo FTKs. Since we want to keep these out of Genesis, some miscellaneous cards, mostly draw spells, will be getting points tacked on. A few people tried some FTKs at these events. They didn't do so hot, but it's the only way to be sure. After we make this update, we're going to leave things alone the end of the Genesis celebration event. There will be another update for the launch of Blazing Dominion on its premiere event weekend, just like we did for Burst Protocol. If something pressing comes up during the next month and a half, we'll address it so players can get ready for YCS Columbus on May 23rd. Just keep on posting those deck lists using hashtag Yugioh Genesis. Okay. Yeah, there's an Exodia FTK going around, and I've already seen people like, oh, they should put the Exodia head at 100 points, but then in response to that, I've seen people post, other versions of the FTK that work without Exodia. So realistically, the answer, or like what they're doing here, I think is the correct way to do it. I think you just need to put a limit on a bunch of these draw spells. That is just something that needs to happen. The ability to draw your entire deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is always going to lead to very problematic things. And so they should be putting points on a bunch of generic draw spells. I think they can all be relatively cheap so that if you want to play one of them, like let's say you want to play Allure of Darkness, that should be accessible, right? Like Allure should not be like 30 points because Allure of Darkness itself is not a problem. The problem is when these kind of cards reach critical mass. So you should probably put some points on like trade in, like give it like 3 points or 5 points for trade in, whatever. Like put some points on Allure, some points on trade in, some points on Upstart, some points on Into the Void. Like all of those cards should just have a couple of points on it so that you cannot play too many of them together. How many points exactly on each individual card? I don't know. You'd have to run the math on how likely it is you can still draw your entire deck with a certain number of these cards. But like in general, they should just make sure that this sort of thing isn't possible. Roadmap Q&A. We noticed some common questions popped up, so we wanted to address them here. For big top events where Genesis and advanced format main events both happen, will day one of the main event be Friday and day one of the other main event be Saturday, so I can shoot for day 2 of each event by playing in day 1 of both? For WZQ and YCS, yes. Yes! Oh, that's big. That's big. But not until after YCS Columbus. Yeah, who cares? Oh, that's huge. I love that. NA article. Yeah, but like, look, if NA is doing this, there's no way EU is not doing the same, because EU venues are already open on the Friday. And they have public events on the Friday already. There's no way this is not going to happen in EU as well if NA does it. This is awesome. This is honestly, this is one of the most important things about Genesis, at least in the early stages, I think, because as of now, Genesis is not big enough to, I think, sustain like a lot of people choosing the Genesis event over the YCS event. This is massive because this way you get advanced constructed players interested in Genesis format. This is an awesome experience. What does this mean? Okay, so this means when you travel to a YCS event, right? The advanced constructed main event is happening Saturday and Sunday, right? You have day 1 where you play usually 9 rounds of Swiss. You try to qualify for day 2, and then day 2 is the remaining Swiss rounds and top cut for advanced constructed format, Saturday and Sunday, right? Previously, or at YCS Dortmund, the Genesis event was happening at the same time. Day 1 for Genesis was on Saturday. So you had to decide between advanced constructed and Genesis. Technically, you could, it started a little bit later, so if you like dropped after round 2, you could have entered Genesis, but for anyone who's doing decently well in the main event, they could not play Genesis. They had to pick. What this means now is Genesis day 1 will be on Friday. So you travel to the YCS, the venue is already open on Friday, which is already the case anyways. People are playing side events on Friday already in the EU. Day 1 for Genesis is Friday, all right? If you qualify for day 2 of Genesis, that is happening on Sunday. So you have a break on Saturday basically for Genesis if you qualify for day 2. So you can still play the advanced constructed main event. The only way this is ever a conflict for you is if you make day 2 in both tournaments. Let's say you go X1 in Genesis, so you're qualified for Sunday in Genesis, and then you go X1 in the main event as well, so you're qualified for day 2 in the main event. You're going to have to pick one on Sunday. You're going to have to decide, like, do I want to continue the Genesis run or do I want to continue the advanced format run? Still, this is an incredibly good thing from my perspective. I can tell you this was how it was in Europe before Dortmund. For YCS Bologna, this is how it worked. We had Genesis qualifiers on the Friday, which I played on the Friday. I brought my Genesis deck to Bologna, and on Friday I played a Genesis qualifier, and I qualified for Sunday in Genesis. Then I played the main event on Saturday for advanced constructed. And I also made day 2 in that. So I didn't end up playing Genesys on Sunday, but it was still a good feeling throughout all of Saturday to basically have that day 2 qualification in the bag already. It was really cool. I had fun playing Genesys on Friday, and it gave me something to do on Sunday if I didn't do well in the main event. And this is, I think, a huge motivation for people to pick up Genesys. Because if you have to decide between Advanced Constructed and Genesys format, as of now, we have to face that reality. The majority of people are going to pick Advanced format. People at the moment care more about Advanced format than Genesys. If you force people to decide between the two, a lot of people will pick Advanced. Not everyone, you know, not everyone. Some people did play Genesys at YCS Dortmund, of course. But like, this is big, right? I still want the Genesys YCS and Advanced YCS to have different prices. The rest I'm happy with now. That's up for debate, but as of now, yes. As of now, the announcement was the Genesys events are going to have regular YCS pricing, right? Regular YCS pricing. So you can basically, if you travel to a YCS and you're playing Genesys and Advanced Constructed, you have 2 full-fledged YCS events that you can play in, which is awesome. That is straight up awesome. This is big. I honestly, the fact that they started doing Genesys day 1 on Saturday was one of my least favorite things for Genesys. Okay, but this, honestly, this overall, there's some point changes in here that I don't fully agree with, but ultimately they're not going to ruin my enjoyment of the format, like unless they put roll to like 5 points or some shit. But I'm sure they won't do that. But like, you know, I don't agree that they're going to put some points on Cosmic Cyclone, all right? But some points on Cosmic Cyclone are not going to ruin my interest in Genesys format. Like, it'll be fine. This is a much bigger positive than any of the other things in here were negatives, in my opinion. This outweighs all of the things that we've read before. This is awesome. I was hoping Genesys would be a lower power format. Can that be fixed? This can already be done. One of the beautiful things about Genesys is that the tournament organizer can just adjust the cap. Setting the point cap to 50 or 25 cuts the power level of the tournament decks considerably. The 10-point cap limits the use of point-costed cards to only the smallest point cost, and only a handful of those. A 0-point cap cuts them out entirely. Ask your tournament organizer to try different caps if that's what you're looking for. Okay, right now, I don't really see people doing this. Right now, the standard for Genesys is just 100 points, and everyone is kind of like playing those by those rules. I can imagine it would be pretty hard to find enough people and get them interested in like playing a lower cap. In theory, this is fun. I think it's something that would eventually happen once Genesys grows a little bit larger. Like, I think at the moment, Genesys is still like in the early phases, and it still needs to grow a little bit before people start experimenting with variations of the format, right? Like the 100 point standard for now is what the community is playing, right? This is good. People are starting to get interested in this format. Once the format is big, I'm sure there's going to be enough people who are going to experiment with like higher or lower cap. I think right now, this is not really something that's going to happen too often until the format has kind of like established itself, right? The whole balancing would need to be reworked for this. I think if you go down in points, it's fine. But you are correct with saying like, oh, the whole format is balanced around 100 points. So if you change the cap, it kind of ruins some things. I would say like if you go up with the cap, I think it'll be pretty crazy. Like if you go up in points, then a lot of combinations become legal that shouldn't be legal, which is weird. I think if you go down in points, it's probably okay, right? I think going down in points, you just lower the power level, period. Like that's just how it's gonna go. What data do you use for point adjustments? Tournament data is first and foremost, so we've been relying on the Invitational and the YCS. We also look at decks shared with the Genesys hashtag, but the big news recently was the addition of Genesys to Neuron. Oh, I didn't notice this. When more local official tournament stores get patched into submitting decks result via Neuron, we'll finally have the continuous stream of data that we've been waiting for all along. We've been building Genesys brick by brick during this early access period, and it's been coming together very nicely. Thank you everyone for your enthusiasm and patience. Okay, it's an interesting update. It's kind of like more than I was expecting, since this was not the points changes directly. Those are coming out soon. But okay, so TLDR, very good structural changes for Genesys. This, I cannot stress enough how big this is for the general interest in Genesys. If people are able to play this format at YCSs without having to skip the advanced constructed main event, that is massive. So structurally, this is a very, very good announcement for Genesys. It's insanely good. The points themselves, you know, if points on FDKs, good. Points on low usage stuff, good. The standard side tech changes, I don't personally agree with. They should put more points on Cool Tune rather than Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Repointing Regenesis, for example, is good. Putting points on Vision is good. Putting some points on Exo Sister is questionable because it's not performing well. But yeah, okay. All things considered, structural change is really good. The other changes, kind of whatever, or meh. But okay, fine. Zero Floodgate mentions. Yeah, I don't know what it is. But I don't know why they refuse to talk about dimensional fissure, dimension shifter, gravity collapse, or whatever it's called. Like, I do not understand. The whole premise of this format was to eliminate those cards, and now it's been pretty, like, we've been playing this format for months now, and everyone is happy that there's less floodgates. That's the point. That's one of the main things that gets people interested in the format, actually. But somehow we're just struggling to put points on the last couple ones that people are actually playing. Like, what the hell? Like, why are we not doing that? No, Vision is based. Vision is based, but here's the thing. This does not kill Vision, right? They can just put, if they put 5 points on Vision, you can still play the card. They just don't consider banishing as a floodgate, it seems. Well, yeah, if you think banishing all of your opponent's cards is not a floodgate, you're kind of crazy. Well, okay.